Imagine for a second that you're wearing a pair of those, like, highly advanced augmented reality glasses.
Right, like the really high-tech
Yeah,
ones.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you're walking down your normal, I don't know, slightly gray neighborhood street, but through the lenses, everything is completely different.
Right, it's totally transformed.
Yeah. There are these glowing neon signs and like a dragon flying overhead. The trees are made of spun gold. It's breathtaking. It's magical. You're
But,
just completely captivated.
well, sure, but I mean, if you try to lean against one of those golden trees, you're gonna fall right onto the pavement.
Ouch. Yeah.
Because the tree isn't actually there, right? The physical world hasn't changed just because your perception of it
Oh,
has.
that's such a good point. And worse, you might be so distracted by, like, the AR dragon that you literally walk right into oncoming traffic.
Exactly. The beauty of the filter is undeniable, but the hard edges of reality, they haven't gone anywhere.
They really haven't. And welcome to this deep dive, because today we're looking at a forecast from Tarot by Heisey that warns us about exactly this phenomenon.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating one.
Right. It's all about what happens when intoxicating magic blinds us to the practical world. We're exploring the very specific energy forecasted for today, June 16th, 2026.
And that energy centers entirely on this delicate and honestly often dangerous balance between inspiration and illusion.
It really is a tightrope walk.
It's a tension we all navigate.
Yeah.
And Tarot by Heisey provides two interconnected frameworks to help us understand it. And by the way, you can find more of their work at tarotbyhick.net.
Right. Highly recommend checking them out.
Definitely. But our focus today is on this astrological forecast for an alignment called Venus trine Neptune. And that's paired with a really beautiful fable titled The Lantern Maker's Garden.
I loved that fable.
It's great, right? Together, they kind of act as a psychological mirror. They show us how we use imagination sometimes to our benefit and, well, sometimes to our immense detriment.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the weather of the day. Because astrology, especially in the way it's presented here, is really functioning as a framework for human emotion.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Right. It gives us this, like, vocabulary to talk about our internal state.
That's a crucial way to look at it, honestly. The forecast describes the Venus trine Neptune alignment using some really heavy evocative language.
Oh, very much so.
It characterizes the energy right now as romantic, glamorous, inspired. But the most important phrase it uses is that this alignment brings in, quote, intoxicating sense of possibility.
Intoxicating. That is such a loaded word, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because it implies a loss of control, like a blurring of the lines. When you're intoxicated, your judgment is fundamentally altered. You aren't seeing things clearly.
Which is exactly the point. The forecast suggests that under this influence, you might find yourself feeling unusually open-hearted or highly artistic or just simply like desperate to believe in something beautiful again.
I feel like we all have those days.
Oh, for sure. It's a period where our baseline for empathy is just massively heightened. The barrier between our practical minds and our deepest desires gets extremely thin.
Almost paper thin.
Exactly. So we feel this drive to dive into passion projects, to forge these enchanting connections, and essentially overlay that augmented reality filter onto our everyday lives.
I often think of this kind of idealistic energy as being similar to walking through a crowded city with a cinematic swelling soundtrack playing in your noise-canceling headphones.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right, like suddenly the guy pouring your coffee isn't just a tired barista. He's a melancholic artist trapped in the modern grind.
Totally.
And the couple arguing on the street corner isn't just having some petty disagreement about groceries. They are experiencing a tragic, passionate misunderstanding.
Like everything becomes a movie scene.
Exactly. The music literally changes how your brain interprets the raw data of your surroundings. Everything looks poignant and full of deep meaning.
The danger of that soundtrack, though, is that it drowns out the actual alarm bells going off around you.
Yep. You can't hear the traffic.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that altered perception is exactly where the forecast places a massive warning sign.
Right.
Because right after encouraging us to embrace this visionary art and romance, it issues this blunt directive: maintain discernment.
Maintain discernment. Two very grounding words.
Very. It notes that fantasy may reveal what our heart wants, but it does not automatically prove that the situation can hold it.
Wow. That is such a fascinating psychological pivot. Fantasy does not automatically prove that the situation can hold it.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
It really is. We are basically being asked to hold two weakly contradictory states of mind at the exact same time.
Yeah, which is not easy.
Not at all. We are supposed to be completely open to the magic of the moment while remaining, like, ruthlessly objective about the facts on the ground.
It requires a massive amount of cognitive dissonance. Because when you are feeling that idealistic glow around someone or something, your brain is just getting hit with a massive wave of dopamine.
No, the brain loves a good fantasy.
It does. So the absolute last thing your neurochemistry wants you to do is take off the headphones, stop the music, and coldly evaluate the structural integrity of the situation. We crave the cognitive ease of the fantasy.
Which is why abstract warnings about maintaining discernment usually just go in one ear and out the other.
Pretty much, yeah.
So to see how insidious this idealistic glow can actually be in real time, Tarot by Hissy uses the fable of Clara. Her story perfectly illustrates this collision between intoxicating possibility and the cold, hard pavement of reality.
And Clara, she really represents the trap of extreme practicality, I think.
Definitely.
We learned she spent years actively avoiding the old quarter of her city because the narrow, artistic streets there, they just remind her of abandoned plans.
Yeah, that part was so sad.
She used to dream of being an artist, but she traded her paintbrushes for paychecks. You know, the bills arrived, the responsibilities multiplied, and her imagination essentially just starved to death.
I think anyone who has ever, compromised on a dream to pay rent can understand Clara.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very universal feeling.
Yeah. The text mentions her imagination faded into the background like half-forgotten songs. It's not a sudden death of the soul, right? It's a slow erosion.
A slow erosion, yeah. That's exactly it.
But then she experiences this massive creative relapse, which is triggered by this Venus trine Neptune energy.
Right.
She's walking home in the rain. She sees these impossible rose gold lanterns, and she follows them into this hidden courtyard where logic just entirely ceases to exist.
The description of this lantern garden is just pure, unfiltered visionary art.
It's so beautiful.
It really is. You have flowers blooming in every season simultaneously, like roses on snowy branches.
Wow.
Yeah, summer lilies and autumn ponds. And the people inside are doing the impossible. Musicians are shaping the wind. Poets are writing verses that literally turn into birds.
It sounds incredible.
It is the absolute pinnacle of that intoxicating sense of possibility. And amidst all this elderly woman hands Clara a paintbrush and says, "Welcome back to yourself."
Wait, let me push back on this for a second.
Okay, sure.
Isn't this garden exactly the kind of intoxicating delusion the forecast just warned us about? I mean, Clara is a grown woman with bills to pay and a job to go to.
Right.
Instead of dealing with her actual life, she's wandering into a secret garden where time behaves strangely to hang out with magical musicians. Isn't this the literal definition of putting on the blindfold? Escaping into a fantasy because reality's just too hard.
It definitely looks like escapism on the surface, but the underlying psychological mechanism is entirely different.
How so?
Well, escapism numbs you. Think of like binge-watching television or doom scrolling.
Guilty as charged.
Right, we all do it. But you do those things to turn your brain off and detach from your identity. When Clara touches the paintbrush, she doesn't feel numb. She feels a sharp, stirring ache of longing.
Oh. Okay, so the longing acts as a kind of internal compass.
Precisely. This isn't a distraction from her real self. Her purely practical life had become the distraction.
Oh.
The garden is restoring her baseline. We often think of practicality and imagination as opposites, you know. But starving your imagination doesn't make you more grounded, it just makes you hollow.
That makes a lot of sense.
The forecast actively supports visionary arts because engaging with our creativity is how we process our own internal reality. The garden wasn't a place to hide. It was a mirror showing her the parts of her identity she had just completely abandoned.
I see. That makes sense, because the real test is what happens when she actually leaves the garden.
Exactly.
She doesn't stay there forever in some perpetual state of delusion. She takes the inspiration and brings it back to the gray streets of her practical life.
Yes, she brings it with her.
She starts painting again, not for money or recognition, but just because she loves it.
Yeah.
And that creative awakening starts to ripple outward. It brings new opportunities and new connections.
She's integrating the magic. She took that AR dragon we talked about and used the inspiration it provided to navigate her actual neighborhood.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Oh, yeah.
Because this integration process makes her incredibly vulnerable.
It does.
She is wide open, her empathy is heightened, and the world looks beautiful again. And that exact vulnerability sets up the most dangerous part of this astrological weather, the romantic illusion.
Ah, yes. Elias.
Right. Her renewed energy brings her into contact with this man named Elias.
Yeah, Elias is a sculptor she meets while she's exhibiting her new paintings. He's thoughtful, he has a warm laugh, and he seems to perfectly fit into this new magical chapter of her life.
The perfect leading man.
Exactly. They spend weeks wandering these riverside paths, exchanging ideas about art, and Clara starts looking at Elias through the exact same golden light she saw in the lantern garden.
Everything feels enchanted, effortless, and honestly most dangerously destined.
Destined, yeah. That's the trap.
She's listening to that swelling cinematic soundtrack we talked about. And Elias has been cast as the romantic lead.
Yeah.
So naturally, she confesses her feelings to him.
Of course she does.
She assumes that because the connection feels magical to her, it must be leading to a romantic partnership.
And this is exactly where the fantasy hits the pavement.
The cold, hard pavement.
Elias smiles, tells her he cares about her deeply, but adds, "Not in quite the way you're hoping."
Ugh. It's a gentle rejection, but a devastating one.
It really is.
The golden glow just flickers and dies. The music stops. This is the moment where, historically, someone in Clara's position might completely fall apart.
Oh, for sure.
She might throw away her paintbrushes, declare that the world is a cold, awful place, and retreat entirely back into her hyper-practical gray life.
What's fascinating here is that Clara doesn't do that.
She doesn't.
No, she doesn't have a meltdown or curse the universe. Instead, she experiences this profound epiphany that serves as the mechanical breakdown of how psychological projection actually works.
That part was so insightful.
It was. She realizes that the feeling she had fallen in love with wasn't entirely Elias. Part of it was possibility. Part of it was hope. Part of it was literally her own longing reflected back at her.
We do this all the time, don't we?
Oh, constantly.
We use fantasy as a safe testing ground for unfulfilled desires. We mistake the intensity of a fantasy for the viability of a reality.
That is the perfect way to phrase it. She had a massive, raw desire for connection, for romance, and a life filled with art.
Right.
She met a man who possessed maybe, I don't know, 10 or 20% of the traits she was looking for. You know, he was an artist, he was kind, and her brain, which had been starved for magic, simply projected the remaining 80% onto him.
Wow.
She wrapped him in the fantasy of the lantern garden.
It goes right back to the warning from the beginning. Fantasy reveals what the heart wants, but it doesn't prove the situation can hold it.
Exactly.
Her heart wanted a deep artistic romance. That was a true, valid desire. But the situation Elias could not structurally hold that desire because he didn't feel the same way.
And because Clara manages to separate the desire from the target of the desire, she displays an incredible amount of emotional intelligence.
She really does. That's
Yeah.
impressive.
She takes off the blindfold. She looks at the situation with the discernment that the forecast demanded. And because she does that, she doesn't lose Elias entirely.
Right, they stay friends.
They remain genuine friends. She accepts the reality of what the relationship actually is, rather than punishing him for not living up to a fantasy he never even agreed to participate in.
So what does this all mean for you and how you navigate your own life? The story doesn't just end with Clara making a friend. There is a broader philosophical lesson here about how we categorize imagination.
Yeah, the ending of the fable is really key.
Months later, Clara finds the lanterns again. She follows them back to the hidden courtyard, but this time she does so without expectation.
She meets the elderly woman again, who asks her what she learned.
And Clara tells her 3 things.
Right. She says that beauty matters, that inspiration can change a life. And finally, she delivers the core thesis of this entire exploration. She says, dreams are wonderful guides, but terrible blindfolds.
Dreams are wonderful guides, but terrible blindfolds. That is such a profound pivot.
It changes everything.
It completely redefines imagination from a luxury or, a dangerous form of escapism into an actual psychological necessity.
It strips away the binary choice we are often presented with in adulthood. We are frequently taught that to be a responsible, discerning adult, you just have to kill your imagination.
Just put your head down and work.
Exactly. You have to focus solely on the gray pavement and the incoming traffic. But this fable argues that critical thinking and emotional intelligence don't require the death of wonder.
Not at all.
They just require you to use your imagination to plot a course, rather than to obscure the terrain.
You use the magic to illuminate the path, not to cover your eyes.
I love that.
The fable ends with this breathtaking image of thousands of lanterns rising into the night sky above the city. but it explicitly points out that they are not leading people away from their lives.
Right, they are leading them more deeply into them.
Yes. Clara understands that the goal was never to stay in the magical courtyard. The greatest enchantment is pulling those lanterns out of the sky and using them to bring beauty, compassion, and creativity into the mundane, real world.
It's a framework that allows you to embrace the romance and glamour of the Venus trine Neptune energy, but without sacrificing your footing.
You stay grounded.
Exactly. You can enjoy the cinematic soundtrack of your life. You can appreciate the augmented reality dragon. You just still have to look both ways before crossing the street.
Keep the headphones on, but keep your eyes open.
Exactly.
It is a brilliant way to approach not just today's astrological weather, but really any moment of intense inspiration in our lives. We've traced the path from the intoxicating possibilities of the mind, through the pitfalls of romantic projection, all the way to the grounded integration of emotional intelligence.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own.
Something to take with you.
Yeah, it builds entirely on that core psychological mechanism we've been discussing, the idea that fantasy is a mirror revealing what the heart actually wants.
So think about a daydream you've been returning to lately. A scenario you play out in your head, or a fantasy you are actively nursing right now.
We all have them.
We do. If you strip away the specific people involved, if you remove the impossible scenarios and all the glossy cinematic details, what is the raw underlying desire that your own heart is actually trying to show you?
What's at the core of it?
And more importantly, how can you start building the architecture for that desire in the real world today?
How do you take the impossible magic of the garden and use it to paint something real?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you walk away today armed with a little more magic and a lot more discernment. Keep your lanterns lit.